Welcome to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. For so many mothers, an ADHD diagnosis for their child doesn't just come with questions, it comes with guilt, confusion, and a quiet fear that they've somehow gotten it wrong. But what if everything you thought you needed to fix isn't the real issue at all? Today, we're shifting the lens from managing behavior to truly understanding your child's brain, their needs, and your role in supporting them without losing yourself in the process. Now, if you've ever blamed yourself, felt overwhelmed, or wondered what no one is telling you, this conversation is for you. Today's topic is raising a child with ADHD, and I'm joined by Amy Jones, a certified functional nutrition practitioner and certified ADHD coach at Amy Jones Nutrition. Amy, welcome back to Empowered. I'm so happy to have you back on again.
Oh, I am so happy to be here with you today. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And before we begin, Empowered is all about empowering women. And I want to congratulate you because you had sent me an email and you said that you were accepted at the Applied Neuroscience at King's College London. So, congratulations. That is awesome
Um,
news.
Thank you. I am so excited. I think I spend my life thinking about thinking all the time and and to be validated in this way and to get to explore in this new way, I am just like over the moon. Thank you. I so appreciate it.
Well, you are so deserving of it. But let's just dive in now. When a child is
Mhm.
diagnosed with ADHD, what do most parents actually need to understand first that nobody has actually told them yet?
Yeah, I think that I wish somebody had said to me that this diagnosis doesn't change who your child is. It doesn't change who they are to us. They're still that same funny and creative and sensitive and capable kid that they loved. I think what changes now is that all the adults around our child have more information and more access to support and then education around this. There's more opportunity for that. So it can help to explain why our child can be like brilliant in one moment and then really struggle with something we're just like, why is this so hard? So I think that really helps us understand a little bit better more of what some of the nuances around this are.
So it seems that ADHD diagnoses in children are rising. Should parents be concerned, or is this a sign that we're getting better at recognizing what was always there? And how do parents know the difference between a child who truly has ADHD and one whose attention is being shaped by screens and modern life?
Yeah. Okay. This is a huge question. This is one
Mhm.
I get asked all the time, and I want to preface with this with the fact that I'm not a doctor or a clinician who is licensed to diagnose ADHD, but I'm going to offer my opinion based on the work with my own clients as well as my own lived experience with my own children too. So I think as parents, we need to be curious for sure about all of this. I don't think we need to panic about any of it. I think part of the rise in the diagnosis around ADHD and that we often see in social media and other places is because we're actually getting better at recognizing kids who were missed before, especially those kids who were maybe not outwardly disruptive in the way that we were sort of stereotypically expecting them to be. Maybe the quieter and more anxious kids, the people pleasers, very often the girls who seemed fine from the outside. And that was definitely me too. So I think the stereotype is expanding because our understanding is expanding, if that makes sense. And because we're not really looking for that kid who's bouncing off the walls anymore, we're looking a little deeper. So we're also recognizing the child who's exhausted from masking all day. And that's another big piece, that quiet child who holds everything in. So we're starting to see that a little bit better. But I think what is most important to know around this is that ADHD isn't diagnosed from one behavior alone, or maybe even one bad school year, a challenging school year, or one, you know, report card. We have to look at the whole child over time. And absolutely, yes. The way we live now is genuinely harder on our attention span with screens and notifications. And I think like everything I have to manage for my own children is on some sort of platform that I cannot figure out or I'm 24/7 locked out of, right? And
Amy,
then there's short term.
hold
Yes.
on to that thought. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. Raising a child with ADHD is today's topic. So, Amy, before we went to break, we were talking about the different platforms that you have to deal with and basically how everyone's focused on screens. Please continue.
Yes. So it's not just screens for our kids, it's screens for us. And our kids are watching us manage their lives through screens for every activity, for school, for whatever it might be. And then they're on screens. So screens are just part of our life. And there's very little opportunity for all of us to be bored, right? We're
Mhm.
always stimulated. There's always something to look for. There's always something to check, right? And where our kids and I mean, gosh, and even ourselves now, even the way I grew up, was very different from this. We had more opportunities to tolerate slower moments in our
Mhm.
life, to tolerate them. And I think that's where we're concerned. And this is where when a lot of us parents at this point in life are looking at our children, we're worried that maybe is this something bigger. And I think we have to then take that step back and understand that ADHD is deeper than screen habits. It's deeper, right? It shows up across a child's life, their home, their school, their friendships, emotions, routine, like across so much more than just screen related focused incidences or situations.
So, Amy, a lot of parents think ADHD is just about, as you said, attention and focus. What else should they know?
Yeah. So ADHD, I would say, is usually not a lack of attention. It's actually, we have too much attention. Okay. The hard part is that our brain actually has a harder time deciding or prioritizing where that attention should go. And that's why our kids can focus beautifully on Lego and Minecraft and all the things that they love. But then we tell them to go put their water bottle in their bag and they just have no idea even where to start. Right. And that's where we get frustrated. So it's so much bigger than focus and attention because it actually is more about, not more, but includes things like working memory, holding things in our brain, transitioning from one task to another, regulating emotions, so many other things that have to do with executive function. And a lot of that takes so much energy. So a child can know that they need to brush their teeth and still struggle to start actually, how do I even do this? So if this is one thing that I think that has really helped a lot of parents understand it, the best way we can relate to it, if you've never felt this yourself, is that it's like when we have a word on the tip of our tongue but we can't find it, you know it, you're like, oh, but you just can't find it
Mhm.
at that moment. And that's what our children are feeling about, I don't know how to start this. I don't know how to do this. So the problem is that they don't, it's not that they don't have, enough attention to actually do the task. It's that they don't know how to start often, especially if it's something that they don't really want to do.
That's a great way of explaining it. A lot of parents resist getting a diagnosis for their child because of fear. What are they
Mhm.
usually afraid of? And what would you want them to know?
I think um, I think a lot of them are hesitant because they care so much and they're afraid of what that diagnosis might actually change for their family, for their daily routine. They're afraid for so many things. They're afraid that somebody might push medication on them and they don't really understand what that might mean. And or if there's a label, because we're thinking a lot about labels around ADHD that were from years and years ago, and all of those things are shifting now. And they also are afraid because they might actually see themselves in their child, and that can bring up a lot for all of us too. So I think what I'd want them to know is really the point of having an assessment for a child around this is not to limit our child, it's to give give our child and the adults around them a better understanding of that child's brain and better access to the right support. And that's the beauty of this. Um, and without that understanding or diagnosis, kids are going to get labeled anyway, just with words that we don't really want them to, like, and that are painful, like the lazy and the defiant, and you're too much, or you're not trying hard enough. Like, what? Why would we want that, right? I think I'd much rather my child be understood accurately than spend years believing that they're the problem.
I love what you just said. Please don't go away. We'll be right back with how do you deal with your child when they have ADHD? Welcome back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. Raising a child with ADHD is today's topic. Amy, let's continue because this is really, really good intel. How can a parent tell the difference between a child who's choosing not to do something and a child who genuinely cannot do it consistently?
Yeah. Okay. So this can be really frustrating, and I feel it in my body as you say this. um, I always try to look at the conditions around the moment that is happening. So if we think of about whatever is happening in that moment, was there another period of time where it did work? It actually, like, that child could complete that. Maybe they had you beside them as the parent, and maybe you told them what the first step was and it was very clear, and maybe there wasn't as many decisions to make for whatever reason, or there was less pressure or urgency, and all of that tells us a lot. It's really important information. So if we think about it in terms of like cleaning your room, we can tell our kid, doesn't matter what age they are, go clean your room, and that sounds like one instruction,
Mhm.
but it's actually asking our brain to do so many different things at once. They have to notice the mess and decide, like, what happens first here. They have to remember it, and they have to shift between different tasks, and then they have to keep going. And especially if there isn't support or someone there, they have to maintain that momentum or that motivation. So in one sentence, we actually just asked for, like, I don't know, 6, or who knows, depending on the child,
Mhm.
it could be 27,000 different brain jobs, right? So when we stand beside them and say, first, clothes go in the basket, or whatever the task might be, right? We're supporting their brain to focus more on doing the actual action and less about the organization. And sometimes, and that just takes practice and training, right? And it doesn't happen overnight. And that ability, so they might be able to do this like one day and then not the other. That can change depending on how much sleep they got the night before,
Mhm.
how much food they've had, the stress, transition, all of those things can affect. We can tell them the same instruction one day and they can do it, and then the next day it just falls apart. So we have to really look at the context of what is happening right now that they can't do this thing.
So, most parents focus on changing their child's behavior. They see it, they don't like it. What should they be looking at?
Again, what's happening underneath it? It's always a lot of behavior. And I say behavior because often that's a challenge.
Mhm.
It's often what we can see, but it's usually not where the problem started, right?
Mhm.
And and that can look completely different depending on the child. So some kids with ADHD can be very loud or impulsive or very defiant or even destructive. And some kids retreat inward and they totally shut down. They refuse to talk. They're just unreachable. Okay. So it can look very different. Um, but if a child, let's say, melts down over having to do homework, they've probably just used up everything in their body, all of their energy, just holding it together at school. Maybe they didn't eat enough throughout the day. And
Mhm.
then we asked for one more thing when their brain just wasn't there yet. Right. So often we respond, and I'm really saying this with humility because I can absolutely do this. Okay. And I do this on a
Yeah.
regular basis, but we respond with more pressure
Yep.
and consequences. And we're just adding more demand to a brain that's already drained. Like, they don't even hear us. It's not that they're ignoring us, right? So, oh my gosh, I'm fully capable of turning like one homework question into like a family-wide emergency. I can't. But we're all working on it, okay?
Understood.
So, and I think this is where we get curious, okay? That's where we have to use that as a cue and say, "Oh, here I am, heightened again, and is this task asking too much at this time of day or in this situation?" And or, does my child need the first step made clear for them? Like, can I help them, just give them, how do I start? Sometimes they don't know how to start. And giving them that entry point, or it's really about just what is the behavior telling them about what their child can't manage in that moment.
So it seems like there's a lot of questions that surround everything, even simple
Mhm.
tasks, hard tasks. When we come back, we're going to talk about when a child is struggling, and the adults just keep pushing harder. What goes wrong? So please don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. Today's topic is raising a child with ADHD. I'm joined by Amy Jones, a certified functional nutrition practitioner and certified ADHD coach at Amy Jones Nutrition. Amy, let's continue. This is the last segment. I have so many questions for you. When a child is
Mhm.
struggling and the adults around them keep pushing harder, what goes wrong?
Whew. When our kid's brain is already struggling, often we talk more at them. Like, we think that maybe more talking, more instruction, more whatever it is, just saying the same thing over and over again, it works, but actually it just gives them more language to process. And the sense of urgency rises, so that their sense of urgency feels like, ooh, this is a threat, right? This is going to activate their nervous system in a way that's going to put them into fight or flight. And then and then often we add more consequences, and then that can actually increase the shame around this. Like, here I am doing something wrong again because I've only done something wrong 80,000 times
Yeah.
today, right? So when that child is emotionally overloaded, that means the thinking part of their brain is so much harder for them to access. They can't even get to that part of their brain in that moment. So it doesn't matter what we say. It's like, if you think about it, it's like we're starting your computer. I think about this all the time. We
Mhm.
call it booting up, right? You can't yell at your computer to load it faster,
Right.
right? Although I have absolutely tried.
We all
I
have.
swear to you. But like, we can't do that. It's just not possible. And we
Right.
need to think of our children that way, in the same way, right? Sometimes the most effective thing is to reduce the demand first. So that could look like making this, whatever it is that we have to do or the child has to do, making the first step just smaller or easier. Like, what would make this easy for them to do? Maybe it's you being with them and sitting beside them. Maybe it's like, and it depends on the age, right? If it's a teenager, maybe we, I don't know, give them their favorite lovely drink from wherever. And I don't know, we make it easier for them to start the first thing, right? Or we talk to them about what it might be to actually start, what it might look like, and help them get in there, because they don't know that. Their brains aren't developed the same way ours are as
Yes.
parents at their age. And they're learning how to do that. So somebody has to show them. And that's our job pretty much, right? Like, yes, school does a lot, but it doesn't do the same things that we could do for them. So I think fewer words work better than more, for sure. And just one clear sentence, like, the first step is this. Just give their brain one thing.
Okay, Amy, I have two questions before we go, and we're almost at the end. Number one, for kids on ADHD medication who barely eat or who are really, really picky eaters, how does a mom even begin to think about nutrition?
Oh my gosh. Okay. I think we need to think about building eating opportunities and appetite windows that actually exist for our kids. And so that might be things like building before the ADHD medication gets in. and often that because it shuts off the appetite, we can start to build something that works for our child. And I don't even care what that looks like. And I'm a nutritionist, okay? So they can have toast or waffles, but maybe we add Greek yogurt with cinnamon sprinkled into it to
Mhm.
sweeten it up, or and some sort of nut butter on it, and they can have the thing that they want. But we give them, and some raspberries on the side, so they've got protein, they've got fat, they've got fiber, got the whole thing. We fill them up with breakfast. We send them off to school, maybe with a snack box or containers with snacks.
Okay.
And so the pressure I'm eating, especially around lunchtime, is enormous for kids, and especially in elementary school. My gosh, the noise, the chaos, it's difficult for them to eat or even just digest the food they're eating. So that also can be a conversation for support around kids with ADHD. Maybe they need to eat throughout the day. Maybe they need to be snacking constantly. It depends on your child. If it helps them to regulate, then that can be an option. And there's so many people who are open to that. And starting the conversation is the key
Amy,
to
thank you
this.
so much. Amy wants you to do two things: stop asking what's wrong with your child and start asking what's hard about their world. That's where everything changes. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski, and I'm here to empower you and make frugality fashionable. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Bye for now.